I found out my new boss was him the second he said my name out loud. Not just said it, recognized it. The kind of recognition that lingers half a second too long, like your brain is scrambling to connect something it wishes it hadn't. And yeah, I recognized him too. Carson. Out of all people. I wasn't even supposed to be nervous that morning. It was just a new job. Entry-level marketing position, decent pay, normal office, nothing dramatic. I'd done interviews before, handled awkward small talk, even survived group assessments where everyone pretended to be confident while silently panicking. This should have been easy. But there's this weird thing about starting over somewhere new. You tell yourself no one knows you, no one has expectations, no one has context for who you used to be. Clean slate. That's what I kept repeating in my head while standing outside the glass building, adjusting the strap of my bag like it mattered. Clean slate. I walked in, checked in at reception, forced a polite smile, all that usual stuff. The office itself looked exactly how you'd expect: neutral tones, open space, people pretending not to stare at the new guy. I got introduced to a few team members. Names I instantly forgot. Handshakes that blurred together. And then someone said, "Your team lead should be here any second." Cool. Fine. Normal. Until I heard footsteps behind me. "Julian?" There's something about hearing your name in a voice you used to argue with at 2 a.m. in comment sections that just hits different. I turned around. And there he was. Carson. Same sharp jaw. Same dark hair, just shorter now. Same eyes that always looked like he was half judging you, half amused by you. Only now he was standing there in a fitted button-up, holding a tablet, looking like someone who had his life very much together. Unlike the last time I'd seen him. Online. Arguing about something stupid. I blinked, trying to process it. He tilted his head slightly, like he was confirming something. Then he let out this quiet breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Wow," he said. "Okay. I didn't expect that." "Yeah. Me neither." For a second, either of us moved. And then it clicked. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered. That was the first thing I said to my new boss. Great start. Carson's mouth twitched, like he was trying not to smile. "That's one way to greet your supervisor." "Oh, don't start," I shot back before I could stop myself. "You." I cut myself off. Because suddenly it hit me. Supervisor. Boss. Oh, this is bad. There was a brief pause. The kind where both of you realize the situation at the same time, but neither wants to be the first to acknowledge it. Carson cleared his throat first, slipping back into something more professional. "Right," he said, gesturing toward the hallway. "Let's get you set up." His tone had changed. Controlled. Neutral. But I caught it. That flicker underneath. Same as before. I followed him, my brain running way too fast. Because here's the thing. Carson and I didn't just disagree online. We went at each other. It started with something dumb, some thread about relationships or identity or whatever, and somehow turned into this ongoing back and forth that lasted weeks. Late night replies. Long paragraphs. Sarcastic comments. And yeah, maybe it got a little personal. Okay, more than a little. We never exchanged real names back then. Just usernames, profile pictures, assumptions. But I remembered him. The way he wrote. The way he pushed. The way he always had to have the last word. And now he was walking in front of me like none of that ever happened. Or worse, like he remembered everything. We stepped into a smaller office space, quieter, more private. "This'll be your area," he said, setting the tablet down on a desk. "You'll mostly be working with me and the rest of the campaign team." Working with him. Great. I nodded, trying to act normal. Got it. There was a pause. Then he leaned slightly against the edge of the desk, crossing his arms. And just looked at me. Not professionally. Not casually. Just looked. "You know," he said slowly, "I always wondered what you were actually like. My stomach dropped a little. Oh yeah? I replied, forcing a light tone. And? His eyes flicked over me, quick but deliberate. Not what I expected. That should have annoyed me. And it did. But there was something else under it. Something I couldn't quite place yet. Same goes for you, I said. A small smirk appeared on his face. There it was. That exact same expression I remembered from those arguments. Like he knew something I didn't. Like he was already 3 steps ahead. Good, he said quietly. And for some reason, the way he said it made the air feel different. He straightened up, stepping back into that professional version of himself. We'll keep things, professional, he added. Obviously. Obviously, I echoed. Another pause. Longer this time. Then he nodded once, like the conversation was over. But as he turned to leave, he stopped at the door. Didn't look at me. Just said, "Try not to argue with me here, Julian." And then he walked out, leaving me standing there, heart beating a little too fast for a first day at work. Because yeah, clean slate? Not happening. Not with Carson. I lasted about 20 minutes before I realized this was going to be a problem. Not the job itself, that part was fine. Simple onboarding tasks, setting up accounts, skimming through internal docs. Nothing overwhelming. The problem was Carson. Or more specifically, the fact that I couldn't stop being aware of him. It was stupid. He wasn't even doing anything. Across the room, he was talking to someone from the design team, calm, focused, completely normal. If I didn't know him or think I knew him, I wouldn't have given him a second thought. But I did know him. Or at least, a version of him. And that version wasn't calm. Or professional. Or controlled. That version was sharp, relentless, annoyingly persistent. The kind of guy who would quote your own words back at you just to prove a point. The kind of guy who liked pushing people. And now he was my boss. Great. I tried to focus on my screen, but my brain kept replaying that moment earlier. Not what I expected. What the hell did that even mean? I leaned back slightly in my chair, exhaling quietly, rubbing my face like that would somehow reset my thoughts. It didn't. Because if I was being honest, I hadn't expected him either. Back then, Carson had been just a profile picture and a username. A few vague hints about his life, nothing concrete. I'd filled in the blanks myself. Arrogant. Probably annoying in real life. Definitely the kind of guy who talked over people. But standing here now? That didn't fully match. Yeah, he still had that edge. That quiet confidence that almost came off as a bit too self-assured. But it was different. More contained. More dangerous somehow. Julian! I flinched. I hadn't even noticed him walking over. Carson stood beside my desk, one hand resting lightly on the back of the empty chair next to me. Quick question, he said, like he hadn't just short-circuited my brain by appearing out of nowhere. Yeah? I replied, trying to sound normal. He leaned slightly closer, glancing at my screen. Did you get access to the shared drive yet? Oh. Right. Work. Yeah. I think so. You think so? His eyebrow lifted slightly. I sighed, clicking around. I mean, I opened something. Whether it's the right thing is debatable. A quiet huff of amusement left him. Move, he said. What? Move, he repeated, nodding toward my chair. I hesitated for half a second, then shifted slightly to the side. He didn't sit, but he leaned in closer, one hand braced against the desk, the other reaching past me to take control of the mouse. And suddenly, he was really close. Closer than necessary. I could feel it. The subtle shift in air. The warmth. The faint scent of something clean, like soap or cologne, I couldn't tell. My shoulders tensed automatically. This one, he said, clicking through folders. You want the campaign assets, not the raw uploads. Right. I muttered, even though I wasn't really processing the words. because all I could think about was how this was the first time we'd ever been in the same space. After all those conversations, all those arguments. And somehow, this felt more intense than any of that. Julian! Yeah? You're not listening. I blinked. I am. Carson turned his head slightly. Just enough that our eyes met. And for a second, it was like everything else in the room dropped out. That same tension. That same recognition. But this time, there was no screen between us. No, you're not, he said quietly. My throat felt a little dry. Maybe you're just explaining it badly. I shot back, because apparently my brain defaulted to defensive sarcasm when under pressure. There it was again. That look. A flicker of something sharp in his eyes, followed by the smallest hint of a smile. There he is, he murmured. My stomach flipped. What? The guy from the comments, he said. I was wondering when he'd show up. I leaned back slightly, putting a bit of space between us. Maybe don't encourage him, I said. Carson straightened up, finally stepping away. Too late, he replied. And just like that, the moment snapped. Noise rushed back in. The office. People talking. Keyboards clicking. Normal. Except it didn't feel normal anymore. He glanced down at my screen one last time. You'll figure it out, he said. If not, ask. Yeah, I muttered. I'll try not to start an argument about it. That earned a quiet chuckle. And then he walked off again, leaving me sitting there, staring at my screen, completely distracted. Because something had shifted. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just awkward. It wasn't just history. There was something else here. Something that hadn't existed back then. Or maybe it had. Just hidden behind words on a screen. And now? Now it was a lot harder to pretend it wasn't there. I didn't expect the next moment to hit me as hard as it did. It was stupid. Small. Barely anything. But it stuck. Because about an hour later, I got up to grab coffee, trying to clear my head, reset a little. And as I walked back, I heard my name again. Not loud. Not for attention. Just casual. Julian! I turned. Carson was standing near the conference room, talking to someone else. But his eyes were on me. Just for a second. Then he looked away, continuing the conversation like nothing happened. Like it didn't mean anything. But it did. Because there was something in the way he said it. Not professional. Not distant. Familiar. And that was the problem. Because I had a feeling. This was only going to get worse. By lunchtime, I realized two things. First, I wasn't going to survive this job if I kept reacting to Carson like that. Second, he definitely noticed. And that was worse. I was standing in the break room, pretending to be very focused on stirring my coffee, even though I'd already done it like 5 times. Too much sugar. Didn't matter. It gave me something to do with my hands. Something to focus on that wasn't. Still overthinking things, I see. I closed my eyes for half a second. Of course. Do you ever just appear normally? I muttered, not turning around yet. Or is sneaking up on people part of your management style? A quiet step closer. Then, right beside me. Only when it's effective. I exhaled through my nose and finally turned. Carson leaned casually against the counter, sleeves slightly rolled up now, looking completely at ease. Like this wasn't weird. Like we weren't weird. I hated how quickly my brain noticed things. Like the way his forearms looked with his sleeves pushed up. Or the way his posture was relaxed but still, intentional. Or the fact that he was watching me again. Not casually. Not professionally. Just watching. What do you want? I asked. He tilted his head slightly. Can I just get coffee? You already have coffee. His eyes flicked down to his untouched cup. Okay, fair. That made me huff out a small laugh before I could stop myself. Great. Now I was laughing with him. Fantastic. Carson's gaze sharpened just a little at that. Like he noticed it too. Relax, he said after a second. I'm not here to interrogate you. Could have fooled me. He pushed off the counter slightly, stepping just a bit closer. Not enough to be obvious. Enough that I noticed. I'm just trying to figure something out, he said. Oh, that sounds safe. His lips twitched. You always like this in real life? I frowned. Like what? Defensive. Sarcastic. Ready to argue over nothing. I scoffed. You literally just described yourself. Yeah, he said easily. But I'm self-aware about it. That caught me off guard. I narrowed my eyes slightly. So what? This is you being, what? Mature now? Something like that. Wow. Growth. Shocking, I know. There was a brief pause. Not uncomfortable. Just charged. And I hated that word, but it fit. Because every conversation with him felt like it was balancing on something. Like it could tip into an argument at any second. Or something else. Something I wasn't naming yet. Carson crossed his arms loosely. So, he said, how long did it take you to realize it was me? I hesitated. Not long. Same. I raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? Yeah. He glanced at me, then added, you type exactly how you talk. That shouldn't have hit as hard as it did. But it did. Because it meant. You remember all that? I asked. Carson didn't answer right away. He looked at me for a second. Then. More than I probably should. Something about the way he said it made my chest feel tight. I looked away first. Yeah, well, I muttered. Some of it was kind of hard to forget. Like what? I hesitated. Then smirked slightly. Like the part where you were wrong about basically everything. He let out a short laugh. There it is. What? That thing you do. You push. I shrugged. Maybe I learned from the best. Another pause. But this one lingered. Because neither of us looked away this time. And suddenly it felt less like banter. More like something else. Carson's voice dropped just slightly. You know, he said. It's different now. I swallowed. What is? This. He gestured vaguely between us. Back then, it was just words. Yeah, I said quietly. And now? My heart was beating a little faster than it should have been for a conversation in a break room. No, I said, forcing a casual tone. You're still annoying. Just in person. That broke it. He huffed out a breath, shaking his head slightly. Unbelievable. You started it. I did not. You literally opened with still overthinking things. Because you were. I was stirring coffee. For 5 minutes. I froze. You noticed that? Carson just gave me a look. And yeah, that did something to me. More than it should have. Someone walked into the break room then, and just like that, everything snapped back into place. Distance. Normalcy. Professional space. Carson stepped back slightly, picking up his cup. Anyway, he said, tone shifting. Meeting at 2. Don't be late. Yes, boss, I replied dryly. His eyes flicked to mine again. Brief. But intentional. Try not to argue with me in front of everyone, he added. No promises. A faint smirk. Then he walked out. I stood there for a second after he left. Just standing. Because my brain was trying to catch up. And failing. Because this wasn't just two people who used to argue online. This wasn't just awkward history. This was something else. Something sharper. Closer. More real. And way harder to ignore. I grabbed my coffee, finally taking a sip. Too sweet. Didn't matter. Because the only thing I could think about was, this was going to get messy. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. The meeting at 2 was a mistake. Not because of the work. but because it forced me to sit across from Carson for almost an hour and pretend like everything between us was normal. I got there early. Not intentionally, I just needed a minute to reset. The conference room was quiet, empty except for the low hum of the AC. I took a seat near the middle of the table, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen without really seeing anything. I told myself to focus. This was work. Just work. Simple. Then the door opened. And of course it was him. Carson walked in like he owned the place. Which, technically, he kind of did. At least in this room. His eyes landed on me immediately. No hesitation. No surprise this time. Just that same steady look. "You're early," he said. "You're on time," I replied. A small pause. Then, a faint smirk. "Careful." That almost sounded like a compliment. "Don't get used to it." He moved around the table, setting his laptop down at the head. "Of course." Head of the table. "Boss." "Right." I watched him for a second longer than I should have. Noticed the way he loosened his sleeves slightly, the way he rolled his shoulders like he was settling into something. Comfortable. Confident. Like this was his space. And I was just in it. "Julian." I blinked. "Yeah?" "You're staring." I looked away immediately. "I'm not." "You are." "I'm thinking." "About?" "Work." Carson didn't say anything for a second. Then, "Sure." That one word shouldn't have felt like a challenge. But it did. The rest of the team started filing in after that. Conversations picked up. Chairs scraped against the floor. Someone made a joke I didn't fully catch. Normal office noise. Normal meeting. Except I wasn't feeling normal. Because every time Carson spoke, I noticed. Not just what he was saying, but how. Clear. Direct. No hesitation. He had this way of holding attention without trying too hard. Like people just listened. And yeah, that tracked. Even back then, online, he'd been like that. Annoyingly persuasive. Confident in a way that made you want to push back. Or listen closer. I shifted slightly in my chair, trying to ignore the way my focus kept drifting back to him. "Julian?" I froze. Shit. Carson was looking at me. Everyone was looking at me. "Thoughts?" he asked. I had no idea what the question was. "Great." I cleared my throat, sitting up straighter. Yeah, I think it makes sense to focus more on audience engagement first, before pushing the main rollout." There was a brief pause. Then someone nodded. "Yeah, that actually lines up with what we were saying." I exhaled internally. Saved. Carson held my gaze for a second longer than necessary. Then gave a small nod. "Good," he said. But there was something in his expression. Something like he knew. Knew I hadn't been paying attention. Knew exactly why. And for some reason, he didn't call me out on it. The meeting ended eventually. People started packing up, conversations breaking off into smaller groups as everyone filtered out. I stayed seated for a second, pretending to check something on my laptop. Mostly just waiting for the room to clear. Bad idea. Because when I finally looked up, Carson was still there. Of course he was. Leaning against the table now, arms crossed, watching me. Again. "You do that a lot," he said. I frowned. "Do what?" "Pretend you're busy when you're not." I shut my laptop a little harder than necessary. "I am busy." "Julian." "What?" "You were staring at me for half the meeting." My stomach flipped. "I was not." "You were." "Okay, well, maybe you're just distracting." The second the words left my mouth, I knew. That came out wrong. Carson's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Distracting?" he repeated. I felt heat creep up my neck. "I mean, like you talk a lot. That's literally my job. You know what I mean." "Do I?" I exhaled, dragging a hand through my hair. "Can we not do this right now?" "Do what?" This, I gestured vaguely between us. Whatever this is. Carson's expression shifted. Not joking anymore. Not teasing. Just focused. Then what do you want to do? He asked. That question? It landed heavier than it should have. I hesitated. Because I didn't actually know the answer. And I think he saw that. Because his voice softened slightly when he spoke again. Julian! I looked at him. Really looked this time. No sarcasm. No deflection. Just him. We don't have to pretend we don't know each other, he said. My chest tightened a little. I'm not pretending. Yeah, he said quietly. You are. A pause. Long. Then. What do you want, Carson? I asked. There it was. The question. The real one. And for the first time since this whole thing started. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me. Like he was deciding something. Like he was choosing his next move carefully. Then he pushed off the table and took a step closer. Not rushed. Not aggressive. Just deliberate. Honestly? He said. Yeah. I don't know yet. That wasn't what I expected. At all. I frowned slightly. That's not helpful. I know. Another step closer. Not enough to cross a line. Enough that I noticed. But I know I didn't expect this, he added. Same. And I know, he continued, eyes locked on mine, that whatever this is. His voice dropped slightly. It's not nothing. That hit. Harder than anything else he'd said so far. Because he was right. And I hated that he was right. I swallowed. Carson. A voice from the hallway cut in. Hey, Carson, do you have a second? He didn't look away from me immediately. Just held my gaze for one more second. Then stepped back. Just like that. Distance. Professional. Controlled. Yeah, he called out, turning toward the door. Be right there. He grabbed his laptop, then glanced back at me. Expression unreadable again. Try to focus tomorrow, he said. Like nothing had happened. Like that moment hadn't just. Yeah, I replied quietly. I will. He nodded once. Then walked out. I stayed there for a while after that. Alone. Trying to process. Because now it wasn't just tension. It wasn't just history. It wasn't just attraction, yeah, I could admit that now. It was something building. Something real. And the worst part? I had a feeling. We were both going to let it. The next day, I told myself I was going to be normal. Just normal. No overthinking. No staring. No weird tension-filled conversations in empty rooms. Just work. Simple. That lasted about an hour. I was doing fine, actually. Focused. Productive. Head down, typing, getting through tasks like a functioning adult. Until. Walk with me. I didn't even look up. Good morning to you too, I muttered. Julian. There it was again. That tone. Not loud. Not harsh. But not exactly optional either. I sighed, pushing my chair back. Where are we going? You'll see. Love that. Very reassuring. He didn't respond to that, just turned and started walking. And yeah, I followed. Because of course I did. We ended up in one of the smaller meeting rooms. Not the big one from yesterday. This one was quieter. More private. Less safe. Carson closed the door behind us. Not aggressively. Just, intentionally. I leaned against the table, crossing my arms. Should I be worried? No. You sure? Because this feels like I'm about to get fired. A faint smirk. If I was firing you, this would be a very different conversation. Good to know. A pause. Then he stepped a little closer. Not too close. Just enough. I need you on something, he said. Oh, we're talking about work now? For now. That for now didn't sit right. What is it? I asked. He grabbed a tablet from the table, pulling something up. New campaign. Tight deadline. I want you on it with me. I blinked. With you? Yes. Like directly? Yes, Julian. That's usually what with me means. I exhaled. Right. Just making sure. He studied me for a second. You don't want to? That's not what I said. It sounded like it. I hesitated. Because, yeah, part of me didn't. Not because of the work. Because of everything else. But another part did. And that part was louder than I wanted to admit. I just didn't think you'd pick me, I said finally. Carson tilted his head slightly. Why not? I gave a small shrug. We don't exactly have the most professional history. That earned a quiet breath from him. Julian. What? That was years ago. And it wasn't even real life. I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Didn't feel fake at the time. No, he admitted. It didn't. There it was again. That shift. That honesty that caught me off guard every time. So why me? I asked. Carson didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me. Like he was deciding how much to say. Then. Because you push back. I frowned slightly. That's a good thing? When it's done right. And you think I do it right? I think, he said slowly. You don't just agree to make things easier. A pause. That's useful. I studied him for a second. Or annoying. Both, he said without hesitation. That made me huff out a quiet laugh. Wow. Great endorsement. You'll survive. Barely. Another pause. And yeah. There it was again. That feeling. Like the conversation was sitting right on the edge of something else. Something we weren't saying. Yet. Carson set the tablet down. So? He asked. You in? I hesitated. Not because I didn't know the answer. But because I knew what it meant. More time with him. More conversations like this. More, whatever this was. And somehow, that didn't feel like a bad thing. Yeah, I said finally. I'm in. His expression shifted slightly. Not a full smile. But something close. Good. Then he stepped back. And just like that. Professional again. I'll send you the details, he added. We start today. Of course we do. Tight deadline. You mentioned that. He moved toward the door, then paused. Hand on the handle. And without looking at me. Try not to overthink it. I exhaled quietly. Can't promise that. A small pause. Then. I know. And he left. The rest of the day blurred a little after that. New files. New ideas. Back and forth messages. But now there was a shift. Because we weren't just avoiding each other anymore. We were working together. Directly. Constantly. And it showed. Every message felt sharper. More intentional. Less guarded. Like the space between us was getting smaller with every interaction. By the time the office started emptying out, I was exhausted. Mentally. Not physically. Because trying to focus while also being aware of Carson all day. Yeah. That'll do it. I packed up slowly, stretching slightly as I stood. Heading out? I turned. Carson again. Of course. Yeah. I said. You. Soon. A pause. Then he nodded toward the hallway. Walk with me. I raised an eyebrow. You really like saying that, huh? You really like questioning it. Fair. We walked out together. Not talking at first. Just walking. And somehow, that felt different too. Less tense. Quieter. But not empty. We reached the exit. I pushed the door open, stepping outside into the cooler air. Finally. Space. Breathing room. I turned to him. All right. See you tomorrow? Carson didn't respond right away. He just stood there, looking at me. Again. And yeah, I felt it. That same pull. That same tension. But softer now. Less sharp. More something else. Julian, he said. Yeah? A pause. Then. Were you always like this? I frowned slightly. Like what? He exhaled, glancing away for a second before looking back. Or is it just with me? That hit different. I didn't answer immediately. Because I didn't actually know. And I think he saw that. Because his expression shifted again. Subtle. But real. See you tomorrow, he said instead. And then he walked off, leaving me standing there, hard doing that annoying fast thing again. Because now it wasn't just tension. It wasn't just curiosity. It was something building. Something neither of us fully understood yet. But both of us felt. And yeah, I had a feeling. This was only the beginning. I didn't sleep well that night. Not because anything happened. But because of what didn't. I kept replaying that last question in my head. Were you always like this, or is it just with me? It shouldn't have stuck. It was simple. Casual, even. But it wasn't. Because the answer was obvious. And I didn't like it. The next morning, I showed up earlier than usual. Not on purpose. I just didn't want to walk in at the same time as him. Didn't want that moment again right at the door. Didn't want to feel that shift before I'd even sat down. So yeah, I got there early. Coffee in hand. Head down. Focused. Or at least pretending to be. And for a while it worked. I got through emails. Organized files. Even made progress on the campaign draft Carson had sent over late last night. Which, by the way, was good. Annoyingly good. Clear structure. Strong ideas. Exactly the kind of thing I would have argued with him about before just to prove a point. Now I was just impressed. I hated that. Already working? I froze. Of course. I didn't even need to look up. Do you ever not do that? I muttered. Do what? Just appear. A quiet step closer. Then. I walked through the front door like a normal person. I glanced up. Carson stood there, jacket still on, like he just arrived. Which he probably had. And somehow, that made it worse. Because it meant I'd noticed him the second he walked in. Even without looking. Sure, I said. Very subtle. His eyes flicked to my screen. Campaign draft? Yeah. And? I hesitated. Because I had two options. Lie. Or. It's good. The words came out before I could stop them. Carson blinked slightly. Not dramatic. Just enough to notice. Good? He repeated. Don't make it weird. I'm not. You are. A small pause. Then. Thanks, he said. Simple. No sarcasm. No edge. Just real. And yeah, that threw me off more than anything else. He set his bag down at his desk nearby. Not across the room. Not far away. Close. Close enough that I could hear him moving around. Close enough that I was aware of him again. Constantly. I tried to focus. Really. But it was like my brain kept pulling back toward him. Every sound. Every shift. Every. Julian! I exhaled. Yeah? Come here. I stared at my screen for a second. Then looked up. You're really committed to that phrase, huh? Just come here. I sighed, pushing my chair back again. This better be work-related. It is. Mostly. Carson. Julian. I walked over anyway. Because apparently I had no self-control left. He had his laptop open, something pulled up on the screen. Look at this, he said. I leaned slightly closer, focusing on the content. strategy layout, messaging structure, timeline. Okay, I said. What about it? It's too safe. I blinked. What? It works, he said. But it's predictable. I crossed my arms slightly. So I want you to break it. I looked at him. Break it? Yeah. That's not a normal instruction. I know. You literally just said it works. It does. Then why change it? Carson turned his head slightly, meeting my gaze. Because you'd argue with it. That caught me. You don't even know what I'd say yet. I have a pretty good idea. Oh yeah? Yeah. A pause. Then. Prove me wrong. There it was. That familiar challenge. The one I remembered way too well. The one that always pulled me in before. And yeah, it still worked. I leaned in a little more, looking at the screen again. Fine, I said. Give me 10 minutes. A faint smile. Take 20. I won't need 20. We'll see. I went back to my desk. But this time, it was different. Because now I wasn't trying to avoid him. I was engaged. Focused. Pulled in. And before I knew it, I was deep in it. Reworking structure. Shifting angles. Pushing ideas further than they probably needed to go. Exactly like before. Except. Not behind a screen. Not anonymous. Real. All right, I said about 15 minutes later, walking back over. Look. Carson turned his chair slightly toward me. I leaned in, pointing at the screen as I explained. This cut it. Okay. Too generic. Replace it with something more direct. He nodded. And here, I continued, you're playing it safe again. Push it harder. Make it actually say something. Carson watched me as I spoke. Not the screen. Me. And yeah, I noticed. Of course I did. Carson. Yeah? You're not even looking at it. I am. You're not. A small pause. Then. I like watching you think. My words stopped. Just. Gone. What? I said. He didn't react. Didn't take it back. Didn't laugh it off. Just held my gaze. Like he meant it. Which. He did. And suddenly. Everything felt different again. Quieter. Closer. More. I stepped back slightly. Focus, I muttered. I am. On the work. A faint smirk. Right. I exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through my hair. This is exactly what I mean. What? This whatever this is. Carson leaned back in his chair. Studying me. Still trying to define it? Yes. Why? Because it's confusing. A pause. Then. Is it? I stared at him. Yes. Another pause. Then he stood up. Slow. Deliberate. Closing the space between us again. Not too much. Just enough. It doesn't feel confusing, he said quietly. My chest tightened. Then what does it feel like? He didn't answer immediately. Just looked at me. That same look. Steady. Focused. Too much. Then. Like you're not arguing as much as you think you are. That hit. Because he was right. Again. And I hated that. I swallowed. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe, he said. But he didn't sound convinced. We stayed like that for a second. Too close. Too quiet. Too aware. Until someone called his name from across the office. And just like that, it broke. Again. Carson stepped back. Professional. Controlled. Later, he said. Like nothing had happened. Like it wasn't building. Like it wasn't. Yeah. Yeah, I replied quietly. Later. But this time it didn't reset. Because now I knew. And I had a feeling. He did too. It happened 3 days later. Not slowly. Not subtly. Just. All at once. We stayed late that night. Not planned. Not discussed. It just happened. One of those deadlines that suddenly feels closer than it should, even though you knew about it the whole time. Most of the office had cleared out by 7. By 8, it was just a few people scattered around. By 9, just us. I was sitting at my desk, shoulders tight, eyes burning from staring at the screen too long. Take a break. I didn't even look up this time. You say that like you're not doing the exact same thing. I'm not. I finally glanced over. Carson was leaning back in his chair, watching me. Again. Of course. You've been staring at that same paragraph for 10 minutes, he added. I'm thinking. You're stuck. I'm thinking. A pause. Then. Come on, he said, standing up. I frowned. Where are we going? You'll see. I let out a tired breath. You really need new lines. And you still follow me anyway. Yeah, I hate that. A quiet smirk. We ended up outside. Back of the building. Cool air, quiet street, city lights just faint in the distance. It felt different out there. Like the rules of the office didn't quite apply. I leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Better? Carson asked. Yeah. A pause. Then he stepped up beside me. Not too close. Just close enough. We stood there in silence for a bit. And for once, it wasn't tense. It wasn't sharp. It was just quiet. You remember what we argued about the most? His voice cut through the silence, softer than usual. I let out a small breath. Everything? A quiet huff. Yeah, fair. I glanced at him. But mostly, control, I added. That got his attention. How so? You always had to have the last word, I said. Had to steer the conversation. Push it where you wanted. And you didn't? I shook my head slightly. Not the same way. Carson tilted his head. No? No. I pushed back. You pushed through. A pause. Then. That sounds about right. We fell quiet again. But this time, it felt heavier. More real. Because this wasn't just about the past anymore. Julian. I looked at him. Closer now. I hadn't even noticed when that happened. Yeah? He hesitated. Actually hesitated. And that was new. I've been trying to figure something out, he said. I exhaled quietly. You and me both. A faint, almost nervous smile. Yeah. Another pause. Then. This doesn't feel like before, he said. No, I agreed. It doesn't. And I don't think it's just because it's in person now. My chest tightened slightly. Then what is it? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. That same look. But softer. Less guarded. More. I think I liked it. My brain stalled. What? Arguing with you, he clarified. That's not surprising. No, he said. But that's not all I meant. The air shifted. I felt it. That moment again. The one right before something changes. Carson. I didn't know who you were, he said. Didn't know anything real about you. I stayed quiet. Because I could feel where this was going. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But I kept going back. He continued. Every time. A pause. Not because I wanted to win. That hit. Hard. Then why? I asked quietly. Carson stepped closer. This time. No pretending it was accidental. Because it was you. My heart actually skipped. I swallowed. That doesn't make sense. I know. You didn't even know me. I know. Then how? I just did. His voice was steady. Certain. Like he'd already figured this out before I had. And maybe he had. We were close now. Closer than we'd ever been. No desks. No screens. No distance to hide behind. Just us. This thing, I said barely above a breath. It's complicated. Is it? Yes. Or are you making it complicated? I exhaled sharply. Carson. Julian. That tone again. Quieter. Closer. Stop thinking for a second. I can't. Yeah, he said softly. You can. A pause. Then. Just don't argue with me right now. That almost made me laugh. Almost. But I didn't. Because something in his expression stopped me. Something real. Something serious. And yeah, for once, I didn't argue. Underscore 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 underscore. The silence stretched. But it didn't feel empty. It felt like waiting. Like something was about to happen. And neither of us was stepping away. You're doing it again, he said quietly. What? Thinking. I let out a breath. Yeah. A small step closer. You don't have to. I always do. Not this time. I looked at him. Really looked. And for once, I didn't see the guy from the arguments. I didn't see my boss. I didn't see someone I had to push back against. I just saw him. And that was somehow worse. Or better. I didn't know. Julian. Yeah? Another pause. Then he reached out. Not fast. Not hesitant. Just certain. His hand brushed lightly against my wrist. Barely anything. But enough. Enough to make my breath catch. Enough to stop my brain completely. Still confusing? He asked. I swallowed. Yeah. A faint smile. Good. What? Means it's real. I should have said something. Should have pulled back. Should have done something. But I didn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't thinking. And neither was he. Try not to argue with me, Carson said softly. And yeah, that got a quiet breath out of me. Not right now, he added. I shook my head slightly. Yeah, I said. Okay. And that was the moment everything changed. I wish I could say something dramatic happened right after that. That everything escalated. That we crossed some clear line and suddenly nothing was the same. But the truth? It was quieter than that. And somehow, that made it worse. Carson's hand stayed on my wrist for maybe 2 seconds. 3 at most. Then he let go. Not abruptly. Not awkwardly. Just like it had been enough. And yeah, it had. We didn't say anything after that. Not right away. Just stood there. Too aware. Too close. Too everything. I let out a slow breath, dragging a hand through my hair. Okay, I muttered. Yeah. That didn't help. A quiet huff of amusement from him. It wasn't supposed to. I glanced at him. You're unbelievable. I've been told that. Another pause. But this one felt different. Less tense. Less sharp. Like something had settled. Not gone. Just changed. We should go back, I said after a second. Carson nodded. Yeah. Neither of us moved immediately. Of course. Then finally, he stepped back. And just like that, the space between us returned. But it didn't feel the same anymore. Because now I knew what it felt like when it wasn't there. We walked back inside together. Not talking. Just side by side. And somehow, That felt more intimate than anything we'd said. The rest of the night was quiet, focused, almost normal. We finished what we needed to finish, wrapped up the campaign draft, sent everything off. No more weird conversations. No more moments. Just work. But the shift was still there, underneath everything. By the time we finally packed up, it was late. Really late. The building was almost empty. Again. We walked out together. Same as before. Cool air. Quiet street. Only this time, it didn't feel like something was about to happen. It felt like something already had. Julian! I looked at him. Yeah? He hesitated. Just slightly. I meant what I said. I frowned. Which part? A faint smirk. Most of it. Very specific. I know. A pause. Then. I don't want this to get weird, he said. I let out a small breath. Too late. That got a quiet laugh out of him. Yeah. Fair. Another pause. But this one felt important. Like we were both choosing what came next. We still have to work together, I added. I'm aware. So we can't. I know. I nodded slightly. Okay. Silence. Then. That doesn't mean we ignore it, he said. I looked at him. You don't want to ignore it? No. That was direct. Very Carson. And you? He asked. There it was. The question. Simple. But not easy. I exhaled slowly. Because yeah, I could lie. Say it was a bad idea. Say we should keep things professional and leave it at that. But after everything? After all of this? That wouldn't be honest. And he'd know. He always did. No, I said finally. I don't want to ignore it either. Something in his expression shifted. Not big. But real. Okay, he said. Just that. But it meant more than it should have. We stood there for a second longer. Then. See you tomorrow? I asked. Yeah. A pause. Then he added. Try not to argue with me. And yeah. That got a small smile out of me. No promises. Wouldn't expect any. He turned and started walking. Then stopped. Looked back. Julian. Yeah? A brief pause. Then. I'm glad it was you. That hit. In a way I wasn't ready for. I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't need to. I think he saw it anyway. Yeah, I said quietly. Me too. And that was it. No big moment. No dramatic ending. Just two people who started as strangers behind screens turned into something else entirely. And somehow, I had a feeling this wasn't the end. Not even close. Just the part where everything finally started.